this is Immortal Technique. Está viendo AOL Latino, Rock the Bells. Ya tú sabes, viva la revolución y aprende la historia siempre de donde viene de. No te olvides la cultura tuya.
So we're hanging out here with Immortal Technique at Rock the Bells 2007, AOL Latino. ¿Qué pasó, brother? ¿Todo bien?
Todo está bien, trabajando duro, empezando el tour.
¿Estás trabajando en el nuevo CD?
En dos nuevos CD. Uno que se llama The Middle Passage y el otro que es un proyecto con DJ Green Lantern que se llama The Immortal. Y, ¿sabes? Voy a estar viajando por casi 2 meses en un tour inmenso por todo el país.
¿Cómo está la gente allá?
Sufriendo. La vida dura.
La vida dura everywhere.
Bien dura, pero más dura para esa gente porque todos los recursos naturales se están quitando de ellos y vendiendo al extranjero, y sin embargo son países muy ricos, Latinoamérica, también como África, pero ellos no pueden poner sus recursos naturales para su gente propia, porque agribusiness y todo lo más que controla la economía lo empuja a un lado. O sea, no es suficiente tener un presidente que se parece indio, un presidente negro, no importa nada. Porque la gente se ha dado cuenta que los bancos, que el negocio extranjero controlan el país completamente. Y el Perú no es excepción, no es una excepción, ¿sabes?
People have been waiting for your new album, Middle Passage, for a while now. What do you got to say to those fans that have been waiting so hardcore for it?
Well, yeah, it's about a year late, so there are definitely some people that are a little upset about that. Basically, I've been touring 100 and 150 days a year sometimes. I maintain a heavy tour schedule. I do a lot of guest appearances. I recently bought a farm in Latin America where we counterbalance the agribusiness by donating a percentage of it back to the people itself and by selling majority of the percentage to the local market rather than just exporting it like the Saudis and the Israelis that have a lot of land now down there do. So I mean, those projects have taken up a lot of work, and creating this this scholarship program that I'm working on as well, that pretty much the funds, we're just waiting for matching funds from CUNY, and you know, there's so many revolutionary things that I work on that music is one of them, you know what I mean? It's just one of them. It's not like that's the only thing. If I was just somebody who rhymed about revolution rather than practiced it in his business and in his life, then people would just look at me and be like, all right, well, whatever, that nigga just does that to sell records. And I'm sure that there are individuals who believe that, and I don't blame people for being skeptical or individuals for being so jaded because they used to getting lied to. They're probably people who've gotten fucked over in their life and heartbroken, or they feel like they've been let down so many times that it's like, man, who the fuck is this nigga to promise me that his style is gonna be any different? So, you know, it's just a waiting game for you bitch ass niggas. So you just gotta wait and see. But I'm a man of my word, and every time when people came at me with the wrong deal and try to control my music, and people, I've been offered large deals. I even had a big deal on the table for Revolutionary Volume 2, but they wanted to remove Mumia and they wanted to remove the 4th branch. They wanted to gut the record, and I didn't allow that to happen. I have my principles, and they're not going to be superseded by idiocy, by industry politics, by a whole bunch of niggas that have no connection to my culture that talk reckless. Mumia has been constantly dragged through the mud by the corporate media, by individuals, by corporations that have routinely not and ignored evidence, basically. You know what I mean? Ignored staggering evidence that have destroyed any semblance of justice that could have ever been associated with the trial. But we're persevering, we're continuing to move, and we're not going to stop until he's exonerated. We're not going to do nothing.
Can you speak a little bit about what's going on now in politics with this new immigration reform that is happening now with the whole border with Mexico and everything else? What the politicians are doing with all that?
Immigration reform or lack of immigration reform? When you talk about reform, I think different people see it different way for economic reasons rather than for racial reasons. Although there are people who are manipulated by racial reasons. You know, there are people who gravitate to a very conservative position because they are racist, you know, and when there are people like Lou Dobbs that automatically assume that anybody who thinks that it has anything to do with race is a cop-out, I think that's a cop-out for him. I mean, isn't he the same fat piece of shit who built his stumbling career on the back of immigrants too? Where would he be without immigrants to rant about? But I mean, you know, it's more than just assuming that an illegal immigrant fucked his wife while he was working on CNN. No one's saying outlandish things like that in any serious tone. I think that the reality is that they're not dealing with people in a very humane way, you know? If people were rounding up white people's kids, Jewish people's kids, if they were rounding up European people's children and putting them in child protective services or in juvenile detention centers while they deport their parents, I think that the immigration process would have a lot of a different face in terms of the way America deals with it because of the economic pressures put on by different communities that are smart because they protect their own. Latino people, honestly, for all the shit that they talk about, you can't disrespect me, and as prideful as Latino males are, they've dropped the ball on this one because there's not that unification and there's no economic pressure being put there. I mean, as a people, imagine what we would do if we stood up and we said, word, all right, then you know what? All the companies that donated to the most conservative candidates that are pushing to continue these type of raids that kick out the undocumented people and that throw their children in these horrible conditions because they're not there to care for them, we're not going to give you any more money. That's how we're going to punish you, and you're going to feel it severely because that's how you base how you vote on. Congressmen don't base how they vote on by their morals, by by how they feel. They base what they vote on by the people that support them economically. That's what lobby groups are all about. Anybody that doesn't understand that about American politics and would claim that that's oversimplifying the issue has an agenda and wants you to believe that everything is fair and equal and that poor people pay the same price that rich people do when they go to prison. They really don't. You know, the only reason they took Leona Helmsley is because that bitch blew up rich people's spots. If she just shut the fuck up and wasn't talking all reckless like, oh, you know what? Only little people pay taxes. And the rich people and the white power structure in America is like, shut up, bitch. Why'd you have to say that? And now we got to get you. Now we got to slap you up just for that. Because we got to make an example of you. You can't blow that up. It's like a big secret. You know what I mean? Like, fuck. But it's the reality of the situation. The laws are made to be broken by certain people. The laws are made to be maneuvered around in this country by people. And we think we live in some extremely supreme society as opposed to all other parts of the world. And yet we've had a handful of presidents assassinated here in America too. Presidential candidates, you know. We've had that election scandal only a few years ago. We have voter fraud here in America. We have referees that are grimy, you know. We have the mob involved in stuff. It's like we think that we live in some completely civilized world and that everywhere outside of America people are barbarians. And that's just not true. I mean, there's definitely laws and there are structures of democracy that exist in America that make it a better country in certain ways, but it exists that way because it takes resources from other parts of the world by destabilizing their democracy. You know what I mean? Because if the people had a choice, they've chosen Chile what government they want. Then America said, no, look, homie, you're fucking up right now. They every time they call Hugo Chavez a dictator, I laugh. I'm like, you know, are you serious? Didn't he get elected how many times? Not to say that his government is perfect, but he wins with an election. And the opposition, they say, oh, he shut down the opposition media. And I'm like, oh, you mean the media that's controlled by another side of the people that doesn't report anything in any way, shape, or form in a just manner? You know, and it just makes no sense to me. I understand that was a bad move for him. He really should have just given them enough rope to hang themselves. But really, you start to notice that in Latin America, people's political agendas are very, very outright in some places and very subtle in others, you know? I want to tell all my Latino people that, remember, we don't run America, but we make America run. And as soon as we realize that, we'll be more powerful than we could possibly imagine. Immortal Technique, Harlem, New York. Viva la revolución.